Alright, in this week's edition of
The Builds You Don't Play,
I'm gonna take a look at the budget version of the Ice Bowazon. Yeah, I haven't really done a budget video on this series yet, have I? A lot of these strange builds in the game are made possible by the expensive items, so there's usually not too much room to get creative with the budget gear. I've made some claims in the past that the Ice Bowazon does fine even with budget gear too, so I'm gonna show you how I personally like to do it. I hope you enjoy. I already have a pretty detailed guide for the Ice Bowazon on my channel, so if you want a deeper look at the mechanics of it, and especially if you are interested in the build's late game capabilities, I recommend checking that video out. A link to it will be in the video description. With this budget guide, I'm not really gonna hold a lecture about the build's deeper nuances, and I'm just gonna jump straight ahead into the gear section. The item choices are always the most interesting aspect of a budget build anyways, right? The aim of the gear I have put together here is to be able to do hell farming on players 1 without it feeling like a struggle. You can do a playthrough of the game with much less than this if you take your time and play it careful. Let's start with the bare necessities. Before you put this character together, I recommend getting at least enough wealth that you have access to these 3 items. A Raven Frost ring, a razor tail belt, which is the best way for this character to reach that 100% pierce, and an insight for the mercenary. Any insight will do, you just want the meditation aura from it, which is a big help when you are rolling with a tight budget. And that's basically it. For every other item I've chosen, you have plenty of alternatives. I'm gonna talk about what I have chosen, and I'm gonna give you some alternative options in text form somewhere on the screen. I use Vision Draw for the bow. This is a normal level bow and shouldn't be too difficult to find. You might spend some time looking for one with a good roll on that minus enemy cold resistance, but if you get around minus 30 or so, you should be solid. I upgraded it once because I could still equip the exceptional version without any invested stat points, so it was essentially free damage for me. The cube recipe for upping it is Ral, Sol and a perfect emerald. For the gloves, I use 320 gloves. You can farm these from vendors. If you have some nice 220 rare gloves with other cool mods, feel free to use them. But the 320 should basically be available for everybody if they invest a little bit of time to farming vendors. For the helm, I went with Shaco. Aside from the plus skills, it's a pretty big boost to your life and mana, and it's very nice, especially when running without battle orders. I sucketed this one with an Ort rune because I felt like I could use some extra light res on the character. A socket quest on a Shaco, in my opinion, is never really wasted, and you can always empty the socket later on with a Hell rune and a TP scroll if you need to change it. You can slap an IAS jewel or a topaz or something in there, or give it to another character of yours if you get something better for this one. For the amulet, I recommend either one of the 20 IAS unique amulets. That's either Cat's Eye or High Lord's Wrath. Both of them are great options. I went with Cat's Eye because I figured it might be easier to find for most people. If you wanna mimic this gear setup but can't get access to one of these amulets, go with something with plus skills and some resistances. You can compensate for the lack of IAS on the amulet slot by putting a shale rune on the bow or something if you like. For the armor, a lot of people would probably go for Treachery, but I don't really like relying on the Fade proc for resistance as a ranged character. Even the IAS from the Treachery with the rest of my gear setup only bumps me up by 1 additional attack speed breakpoint. I wanted some guaranteed resistances from my body armor, so I settled on Lionheart in the end. This is my pick for the most underutilized rune word in the game, considering how good it is. Smoke is another cheap option if you want some resistances, but it lacks the other great stats that you get from Lionheart. For the boots, I believe your best option are some rare boots with faster run walk and good resistances. Boots like that can be a little bit difficult to find, however, so I opted for Natalia's boots, which are a pretty common drop. For your other ring, I recommend you get some cool ring with bunch of resistances on it. Mana is a plus, attack rating is helpful, magic fine, whatever you can get. Some life leech on the ring is also very convenient. It helps to mitigate your need to chuck too many health potions, and it's nice to have a little bit of life leech from the ring in case you happen to get poisoned or something. Mana leech you don't really have to worry about when you are using an insight on your mercenary. For the Switch, you have a bunch of options. A CTA is of course nice if you have access to it, but this is a budget gear setup, so I'm not gonna assume you have access to CTA. You can put a lower res wand in here, and that's something I'd recommend doing if you wanna do higher player counts on this character. You can go for a teleport staff if you like. What I like to do is I keep a harmony bow in here to run around a little bit faster. Ice Bowazon gameplay involves a lot of repositioning, and the harmony bow can potentially help you out a lot with that. Now for the inventory, I'm making an assumption here that most of the people watching this video are probably gonna be playing on Plucky, and they have easy access to the Annihilus charm, so I put it in here as well. The B-net players, on the other hand, can probably trade for a crappy Amazon torch rather easily. The one grand charm I got in here is just a random one with some strength and some mana. The small charms both have some lightning res on them. If you have some bow skillers, you of course wanna put those in here. However, I'm keeping my budget tight, so I went for mostly blank inventory. The stats are actually pretty interesting. Well, no, they aren't interesting at all. It's max vitality. Now what is interesting is that thanks to my gear choices I could go for 0 points in both strength and dexterity. Eventually, when you can switch to an infinity mercenary, I wholeheartedly recommend you put some points into energy on this character. And no, that's not a joke. The points into energy actually make a big difference. But as long as you are using an insight mercenary, I don't think hard points into energy are really required at all, so you can go max vitality. If you look at my resistances, I have pretty good light and cold res, and the other ones are basically in the dumpster. I'm expecting you to have better resistances than this if you have access to even passable collection of charms. For Ancient Tunnels, I'd actually love to have some more poison res for the character. This fire resistance score is good enough for the tunnels, but for many other areas you'd ideally want to have a lot more than this. Skill build is basically the same as it was for the other guide. Max freezing arrow, max cold arrow, ignore ice arrow because it only gives you extra duration, max exploding arrow and fire arrow to deal with the occasional cold immunes. I still like this way more than strafe as your plan B. In the passive skills, get rank 9 Pierce, so you'll reach that 100% Pierce with Razor Tail. Grab Decoy as an emergency meat shield for 3 points, and then start maxing out Penetrate as a might as well kind of thing. My mercenary is using Insight. This was the worst Insight I could find in my stash. I have a Treachery body armor and an Undead crown for the helmet. Basically it's just to provide life leech, but the extra damage to undead and the extra poison resistance is kinda decent in Ancient Tunnels. Half freeze duration as well. It's a pretty underrated helm, I think. For this sample run, I'm gonna run you through the Ancient Tunnels on Players 1. It's pretty vital for the Amazon that you at least get a map where the tunnel's entrance is close to the waypoint. I wouldn't really settle for anything less. By the way, I'm also aware that the Mavina set is great middle of the road kinda option for the Ice Maiden. I just don't consider that set to be exactly budget. The bow and the diadem can be kinda painful to find. You also can't get 100% pierce with the Mavina set, which kinda sucks. But besides that, the set actually has a lot of things going for it. It has pretty good damage on the bow and great resistances, which is nice for a playthrough. But yeah, in my opinion, it's not really budget. On the following Sunday, it'll be exactly 1 year since I started doing these narrated D2 videos. It all started with the budget kicks-in guide, so I think next week I'll try to work on something in honor of this great anniversary event. In the meantime, I think that about does it for this week. Thanks for watching guys, Sigtoid out.